Welcome to the Richmond Film Network podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RFN podcast. I'm Lisa Giles, and with me today, we have a writer and budding filmmaker from right here in Virginia, Séyla Hossaini. Welcome, Séyla.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I want to tell everybody a little bit about you, your background in directing and editing music videos, promotional videos for local businesses, and doing public relations projects with Richmond recording studios. Your biggest inspiration is the newest films coming out of the new French Extremity movement, as well as existential literature from the 1940s and 30s. Tell me what exactly is the new French Extremity movement and why that's so inspiring for you.
So it's basically like a movement of like very raw, real, sometimes very graphic French films. I would say like the newest directors in that movement would be like Gaspar Noé. I would say that Julia Ducournau's films like Titan and Raw kind of fit into that category. I just really like very like hyper real. A lot of the times violence and sexuality kind of are roped into that type of film, and sometimes kind of body horror. But yeah, I just have always been kind of into foreign film, and particularly French films. I just like that rawness, and like it sounds weird to say like I like graphic violence or sex, but I just like very real films that give you a visceral reaction. So I've always found those types of films inspiring.
Before you became a filmmaker, you were directing music videos and the PR work with recording studios, and you've been a writer for a long time. So how did those experiences prepare you and shape your cinematic style?
I've been writing like literally since since I can remember picking up a pencil for the first time. I thought that maybe I'd be a novelist for a while when I was younger. And I remember getting kind of into indie film when I was a teenager. I think that film for me just kind of felt like the perfect medium to express myself in all the different ways that I wanted to, because I like, obviously it always starts with writing for me, but I like that physical aspect of like bringing things to life and not just like leaving them on the page. Um, and I like the collaborative nature of filmmaking as well.
Your film Wigglers screened with RFN Indie Fest back in February, and congratulations again on the
Thank you.
Audience Choice Award for that.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about that, and for our viewers and listeners who haven't seen it, can you give us a taste of what they're in for with that film?
I'm trying to think without spoiling anything. Little bit of body horror elements. A couple of people said that it made them want to puke, which is really surprising to me because I wish we could have even gone further with the body horror elements, but we were on a really like no budget with that film. But some people said that it really grossed them out, which made me really happy because the film is about somebody who's struggling with addiction. And I think that anybody who has struggled with drug addiction would know that it's a very physical experience. It's not just something mental, it's like something that does a lot to your body. And so I wanted to like portray that in a horror film. I mean, obviously there's some pretty far out there elements that might not necessarily be things that happen in real life in Wigglers, but I think ultimately um it speaks to that experience in a kind of fantastical way, if that makes sense. But yeah,
That totally makes sense
yeah,
because for me, when I watched it, I felt like, okay, yeah, you can look at this as being a horror film, and you're saying people are grossed out and want to throw up, but you can also look at it metaphorically,
yeah,
which is kind of how I took it. No, this is not literal, but, metaphorically speaking, this might be what it feels like for someone who's going through this experience.
Yeah, I think it was a way to, like, a means of catharsis, and also there's a lot of humor in it too. It was kind of funny because I never tried to be funny when I'm writing, but I think humor just always makes its way in there, and a lot of people like found the film really funny. So I think it was cathartic in that way too, like getting to find humor in like a really dark place. So that was definitely part of it as well.
You had mentioned wanting to go further, but you had budget restrictions. So, what would you have done more if you had the time and the funding to do more?
I don't want to get too specific just because it would be a big spoiler, but basically just everything was practical effects, obviously, in the film. We just had a couple ideas that we did try, but we didn't have somebody who was extremely special effect oriented or experienced. So we just had to kind of work with what we had. And there's obviously some stuff with live, not animals, but I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's still some really fun stuff in there, but I just wish we had been able to do a little bit more with the practical effects, but we would have had to just invest more money and probably bring on somebody who is more experienced to do um FX work.
Is the film on the festival circuit still right now?
Yeah, that's why that's why it's not out on streaming yet, but it should probably be. I would say expect it to be on streaming possibly like early 2026. There's a few festivals that it might be running through in the fall. So, yeah. But then hopefully after in the next year it's going to be available for streaming on some type of platform. I'm not sure what yet.
So, what reactions to Wigglers has surprised you the most?
Surprised me. Well, I was surprised that people said that it made them want to puke because I didn't think it was I don't know, when you're making something, especially horror, you don't think of it as being like, I don't know, watching how everything's done, it doesn't seem that gross, but I guess I was surprised that people actually found it to be gross. So that was fun to hear that reaction. I remember somebody when we had the premiere at the Bird Theater, I actually heard someone who I didn't know who was sitting behind me say like, "Oh my god, this is too real." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, wow." So I guess it's really speaking to him. I also had somebody at the RFN Indie Fest approach me, and she said that it was reminiscent of like her party days and like struggles that she went through at that time. So it was a really interesting, like cool mixed bag of reactions. And again, something that I love about film is how collaborative it is. And I also love like the audience reception of a film is such a big part of the art. And sometimes you can hear interpretations that you didn't even think of and see things in a new way. And I love how like a film as a piece of art is just like constantly evolving and could take on a new meaning anytime you watch it. Like certain films that I love that I've watched over and over, I notice new things every time, or I see it and feel a different way about it every time I see it. And it's like a living, breathing entity of its own. So, yeah, the audience reception has been so cool. I've heard a few different takes on it. And also, I guess I was surprised by how funny people thought it was too. Like there were a lot of laugh out loud moments in theaters so far from what I've seen, which was really fun too. I was glad that people found the performances to be funny.
Did you say that Frankie Finch was your first film?
So, it was my first like narrative film with actual sound and dialogue. I had done a few like experimental films when I was a bit younger that were like silent films. Which I am not even opposed to doing more silent film. I do actually really love like Kenneth Anger is one of my biggest inspirations, and he only ever did silent films. So I kind of thought for a while that that was just my route that I was going artistically, but then being a writer, of course, like I wasn't gonna just do silent films, but I do have a couple early silent films that are like out there in the ether if people want to go search for them. Well, they're actually I think one of them is still linked, or maybe both of two of them are still in my like link tree on my Instagram. One's called Relief and one is called Easier to Bleed Than Sweat. Those are two like really early projects that I made that were silent films.
Is Frankie Finch out there yet?
Yes, yes, that one already had its debut at the Atlanta Horror Film Festival, and then I decided to release it. So that one is on YouTube and you can watch it.
And that one has a Southern Gothic horror
Yeah.
spin to it. Can you talk about what inspired that story?
I distinctly remember the first time pictured the character in my mind was when I was on tour with my band and we were driving around. We were on a cross country tour and we were just driving down a lot of scenic roads in like Texas and Arizona and these like open desert looking places and like just really beautiful desert like roads. And I pictured this character in a red cowboy hat hitchhiking. And so it just kind of went from there. Like, what is she doing? Why is she hitchhiking? It's actually a character that I've had for quite some time. Like, I don't even know how many years ago. But Frankie Finch, the short film that I put out is technically a proof of concept because I have been outlining what could possibly either be a miniseries or a feature film. Still kind of figuring it out, but there's a whole giant story that I have. It's bigger. It's much bigger than just that short. It's definitely kind of a proof of concept. But I just
And
really
I
wanted.
definitely want to see that come to life. It's so good.
Thank you. I do too, and so does Kylie. Kylie Fox, who played Frankie Finch, she's out in LA now, and she definitely wants to reprise that role. She had a lot of fun doing it, and she did a great job too. She worked on the accent for months. To get like a very specific Kentucky dialect. Like she knocked it out of the park. So she's a great actor.
So fast forward to what you are doing right now. We'll
Mhm.
still be here. It seems like I was just seeing the Indiegogo campaign for fundraising on that, and you are almost finished already.
Yeah, I don't let anything sit for that long. I definitely have like a big sense of urgency with everything. I just feel like I want to get to the next thing. So we'll still be here as a proof of concept for a feature film that I actually have ready to go. Like it is the final draft. Or I mean, it's really hard to call anything a final draft because once you get into pre-pro and once you get into working with your actors, things always can change. But that film is like we are ready to go out there and try to secure that funding for the feature. So it was pretty imperative that we didn't let the short film sit for too long. And I don't like to let anything sit for too long anyway, because I had a friend of mine once tell me, I don't know if this was a quote from a famous director or just some random person, but my friend once told me, you never really finish a film, you just eventually abandon it or something like that. Cause you could always change something. Like everything I've ever done, I could look back and think of a million things that I would have changed. But that's how, if you get into that mindset of like everything has to be perfect, I think that's how people end up sitting on a film for years and years and years before putting it out. Which I don't have any interest in doing because I have too long a list of projects that I want to get into. So yeah. And also I think having the festival deadline really helps. I think having deadlines is really helpful. Like setting real deadlines for yourself to get things done.
We'll still be here is a vampire story, right?
Yes, it
Can
is.
you talk a little bit more about that? Do you have a log line that you can share or anything else?
So it's a story about two cousins. One was on a self-discovery trip to Europe and became a vampire, and then one cousin is just like at the end of her rope, spiraling into addiction and in a really dark place mentally. And they're being reunited for the first time in 6 months. So uh that's the basis of the film, is the reuniting of these two cousins.
And you've assembled quite the cast with some serious credits, landing Lindsay Normington fresh off Honora. First
Yeah.
of all, how did that happen, and how did that all come together?
Yeah, so Lindsay and I actually, before I even knew she was in Honora, I just followed her on Instagram and just thought she was just really cool. Uh, and we've just been like following each other's work for like the last few years, and then I saw she was in Honora, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. But she was absolutely wonderful to work with. She is just super down to earth and so creative. She's also really great at ad-libbing too and like bringing a lot to her performance. Like she was just absolutely phenomenal to work with. We've definitely talked a bit about her having a role in the feature film as well, so I can't wait to work with her again. She's great. But yeah, I'd been watching like other random little short films and things that she had been in before Honora, and just thought she was extremely talented. She's been acting for so long. Like, she's great.
And you met her off of Instagram and you just approached her and said, "Will you do this?" And she said yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
So anyone listening, it can be just that easy. Just go ahead, take the chance.
I think I've read that that's how Sean Baker would cast for his films too. So I think that they met at a party, but I know that he's cast from Instagram before too. I mean, social media there's a lot of detriments with social media, but it's also a great way to connect with people. And like, it's literally where I meet most talent that I work with these days, is literally off of Instagram. Paige Smeltzer, who was the other lead in my film, I also just like happened to follow her on Instagram, and I just thought she had like such a fantastic look. And then her and Lindsay both, well, first off, they kind of look alike a little bit. They have kind of similar facial features. So when I got it in my head, the two of them playing cousins, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect casting. They like kind of look related. So yeah, both of them are just phenomenal actors though. I really can't wait to like work with either one of them again, and or both.
So you're currently in post-production with We'll
Mhm.
Still Be Here. And when do you expect to have it finished?
Yeah, so we are hoping to picture lock around the beginning of June, and I actually have a festival that I want to submit to on June 14th. I have a long list of festivals we're going to submit to, but the earliest one is June 14th. So we are going to jump right into sound mixing with our sound mixer, Jeremy Mazza. On set recorder was Billy Bocci, but Jeremy Mazza is going to be mixing, and we're going to jump right into that the first week of June. So we're gonna have this thing done before June 14th. That's our goal.
That's impressive.
Thank
So
you.
you're bringing a SAG-AFTRA production to Virginia at a time when state tax incentives for film are in question. Can you
Yeah.
speak to the importance of filming locally and hiring Virginia-based talent?
Yeah, so it was really cool to be able to. This is my first union project, actually. And I think for those out there, like, if you want to work with SAG actors and you want to do like a lower budget project, we were on what's called a micro budget contract, which is if it's under 20,000, that's the contract that you will be working under. It's not as, I think people sometimes are weary of or scared to. It's not a difficult process. We met with uh Ryan Hastings, I believe is his name. I hope I'm not getting that wrong.
Mhm.
We met with him, and we had a Zoom meeting with him and another person from the Mid Atlantic chapter, and they were super helpful and excited to help us out. And it's, yeah, I would just encourage anybody locally, if they're interested in, like, don't be scared to work with SAG actors and do the process. It's not as difficult as it sounds. I also obviously had a really great producer, Jesse Robinson from Shenandoah Studios, produce my film and help me through a lot of things that I get scared sometimes of paperwork. But he was a great help. But yeah, I would highly encourage anyone out there to try to do a union film if you want to. It's not as difficult of a process as it might sound like.
Right. That's encouraging to hear, I'm sure, for many people. So
Yeah.
when time is tight and budgets are tight and you have a short film, how do you build, especially for a vampire film, how do you build tone and tension in those constraints as a director?
Okay. So, well, first off, I will say, I did have an amazing AD and team that I worked with. Chelsea Burke was my first AD. Caitlin Whitaker was my second AD. And they really helped me stay on track. Chelsea would be like, I am your clock. Don't even look at your phone. Don't look at the time. Like, I will come tell you if we're going over, if we only have one more take, or in terms of being worried about staying on time or on a time schedule, like having a great AD is something really important that you should definitely, if you can allocate the budget to, that's something that you should have. Um, so that's the first thing I would say about time constraints. We were on a time schedule to get the film done since we were doing it in 3 days, and we had out of town talent. My production designer was also from Atlanta, so we had to do it in the time that we had. So I think as a director, you should try to spend as much time as you can with your actors. consult with camera and all that, but I think focusing as much of your energy as you can on your talent is really important, and not being shy to ask them questions or create dialogue with them. We did have some like emotionally intense scenes, especially with Lindsay, but I think asking your actors like what they need from you is important, and just like diving into it and being kind of vulnerable with each other is important. And sometimes you have to just take your actor aside and like powwow together and try to figure out how you can get there together. Like also listening to your actors is important too. But the way I like to direct things is in a very physical way. I was joking on set that I felt like a yoga teacher. Lindsay and I were doing breathing exercises and stuff like that. Like we were talking about the physicality of like how the body plays into the emotion. I sound like a yoga teacher or something right now, but that's just my personal kind of style as a director. So yeah, you just have to get right into it. When you're on a time schedule, you just delve right into it with your actors and just like, okay, we're here now, we're in the space, this is where the character's at, like let's just hone in on it.
Music and graphics have also been huge in your previous two films. And you had mentioned being in a band. So do you use your music or people that you admire, or how do you incorporate the music and the graphics to bring that punch and put it all together in a nice package?
So actually I did use One Toward Space, my band song, in Frankie Finch. I haven't used any songs that I sing on, but I used one song that my bandmate sings. I wouldn't be opposed to using some of my band's music, but a lot of it hasn't really fit the vibe of what I'm looking for. I have used a lot of music from local artists, and being in a band and touring the country, we know so many great bands all over. So I've in Wigglers, I used one or two songs by them. I think one. I used a song by the band the Swell Fellas, who are from Nashville. I'm using another one of their songs in We'll Still Be Here, and they're just kind enough to lend me their songs for free, which is really great. I've been grateful that a lot of artists have let me use their songs um, in my films. We actually secured a song by the band LA Witch, who I'm a huge fan of. So I was really excited about that. There's one of their songs is going to be featured and We'll Still Be Here, and I'm so excited to use it. But alongside theirs is another artist, Gabriel Ellick, who's from LA, who is a friend of my boyfriend's that I met once at a wedding. Friends of friends, locals, like good mix of different composers and musicians. So yeah. Sometimes I'll put out like a call for like, oh, hey, looking for a hip hop song or a metal song, and then see who responds. And I found people that way. But also if I want like a specific song, I'll just reach out to an artist. But I always encourage everybody, if you want somebody's help or if you want to like just reach out to people. You never know. I didn't even think LA Witch would get back to me because they're very popular and they have a ton of followers, but I just sent them a message and I was like, "Hey, do you want to lend us this song? We have this actor from an Oscar-winning movie." And I don't know. I just threw it out there. They don't know who I am, but you never know. I mean, the worst someone can say is no. So I always encourage people to just
I love your boldness. I love it.
thank you. The song Heart of Darkness is the name of their song, and I've been listening to that song even when I was writing the script, and then it just occurred to me like, oh well, I wonder if we could actually use the song. But it was just exciting to actually get granted use of that song because I literally am a fan of that band. I've been listening to the song since the inception of the script and picturing it, and I was like, oh well, maybe we could actually get this for the movie. So yeah, I don't know, just yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So your films highlight women in all of their complexities. Is that purposeful that you are intending to tell female-driven stories? And what does that mean to you to create space for these strong female-led stories in your filmmaking?
Being a woman, I think I just am naturally drawn to writing female characters, but I do have a couple scripts that I'm working on that feature a male lead. I definitely don't like I wouldn't say that I purposefully try to put women at the forefront of my writing or my films, but I think it just naturally occurred that way. I don't think was something that I set out to do, but I'm really proud of the fact that We'll Still Be Here. A couple people on set said that was the most women that they had been on set with for a production. We had two female ADs, we had female ACs, we had a lot of females were in the crew, which a lot of people said that they were like, this is like the most diverse set that I've been on in a while, or that they had ever been on. So that was really cool. I was really proud of that, even though that wasn't intentional. But it does make me happy when that happens, when you just like the people that were talented and creative and hardworking that I wanted to work with just happened to be all women, because there's a bunch of amazing women in film in Richmond. But I do think like female direct it is really important that I think we start spotlighting more female directors, because I wish I could quote the numbers, but I was just looking at a statistic of female to male ratio in the directing field, and it's still very sad how little female directors are successful and highlighted in the community. But there's so many genius female directors. I mean, I referenced Julia Ducournau earlier. I hope I might not be pronouncing her name right, but she did Titan, which was like one of my favorite movies ever. And then Coralie Fargi, who's the director of The Substance. Like, these are like genius women. And it's crazy that like Julia was one, like only the second woman to win the Palme d'Or like ever. That's kind of wild to me, but I'm glad that more female directors' voices are being like uplifted.
So why do you think that is? You're not intentionally writing stories about women, it just so happens, and you're not intentionally hiring women on your sets, it just so happens. So maybe it's just because you're bold that way, and you go for what you want and you get what you want. If those percentages of women creators and those who are being recognized, it's so small for women, how do you think we go about changing that?
I don't know. It sounds corny, but I think like uplifting each other, and I don't like women being pitted against each other. I talk to a lot of female writers and directors who are younger than me or starting out or on the same level. Like I try to have a cool communication with them, or if like share advice, share inspiration with each other, even if it's something like, I don't know, sharing other people's work or stories. If you think that another woman director is doing something really cool, share her stuff, start a dialogue with each other. Like, I think being supportive um, of other women in your field is important, and not feeling competitive with or putting other people down. Women in film are so freaking hardworking, and like having like two female ADs, they were both two of the most hardworking. Chelsea and Caitlin are two of the most hardworking people that I've met. They made me feel so supported on set. And not that men can't do that as well, but Scott Carter, who's one of my mentors, is an AD, and he's a great AD too. I don't like the idea of hiring somebody or supporting someone just solely because of them being a woman. But when you do find other women creatives that are good at what they do, definitely giving them your support and promoting their work.
Mm-hmm.
Just like supporting each other, I guess.
So are you already thinking about what's next?
Yeah, always. I mean, so there's the feature film that we want to fund that will, hopefully this will help lead to that. We have also got a few other things going on. My band is about to release a music video. We actually just picked a release date that we're about to announce. It's going to be out next month. So that's something exciting that's going on, that I just directed that. We've got, what else is going on? I'm directing a music video for another artist in July. Trying to keep busy. It is hard when it's a little bit of a waiting game when it comes to festival submissions and stuff like that. But I have a couple of other ideas that I'm diving into in the meantime. So there's going to be more stuff coming out before we'll still be here at festivals. That's for sure. And hopefully Wigglers will be hitting more festivals in the fall as well.
Well, Séyla, I think you are exciting. I think you have a very special talent, and people need to know who you are and what you're doing. So can you tell people how to find you, so when We'll Still Be Here comes out, they can go to a festival and support it?
So I would say the best way to keep up with me is probably through Instagram. My Instagram handle is at The Artistic Haunting. And if you want to check out my work, all of my recent projects are linked in my Instagram bio. There's a link tree with tons of links to stuff that I've done that's out right now, and I'm always posting about new stuff that's coming up on there. That's definitely the best way to follow what I'm doing.
Séyla, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.